Hello guys, and welcome to Full Stroke Timeline Hangout number 99, Obsession. This is quicker than I thought it would be. I wasn't expecting to get one done, frankly, before January. Maybe next month, but get a bit of breathing space. As you may have noticed, I'm summer is well and truly over. It's getting cold now, cold in here. Obsession, yes. First, there's a couple of things unrelated to that. On Halloween, in the afternoon, I met my site sponsor in Croydon. I used to have two site sponsors, as some of you may know, but Paul Todd died last year, younger than me. My current site sponsor, who remains anonymous, gave me a very generous donation, which has enabled me to keep all my websites online for the next 3 years, probably longer than that. I'm not sure I'll be around 3 years from now, but hopefully the websites will, and I'll still keep making videos, and they're uploaded to the Internet Archive as well as mostly the second YouTube channel, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, but the Internet Archive is the real. I mean, I upload them at the end of. I upload the video typically to YouTube, and then at the beginning of the next month to the Internet Archive. Locals, forget about locals. My locals account is as good as dead. I'm not shutting it down, but it's been useless for me. I'm still hopelessly shadow banned on YouTube, and I'm sure on BitChute as well. So that's thank you to my site sponsor. Print friendly. This is, for those of you who visit the timeline, there's an app called Print Friendly. They've changed it recently, and it's very good. I'm using it for many of the files I download from websites. If you create PDF files from websites, I recommend Print Friendly. It's exactly as it sounds, printfriendly.com. Right, now the subject, obsession. Apologies for the creaky table as usual. Obsession is a fact of life. People can become obsessed with quite trivial things, with things which are no great significance. You can become an obsessive chess player, an obsessive reader of certain authors' novels, music. There are quite a lot of music fans out there who are. I'm a big Al Stewart fan, but some people go the extra mile. Most obsessions are not dangerous, but obsessions with individuals can be. Sometimes these obsessions, women obsessing about men, result in false allegations of rape and lesser sexual offences. But so they can be dangerous, and they affect women, they affect men. I'll give you a few examples. The tennis player Monica Seles was stabbed on court. She was very young. She was stabbed on, she was about 20 years old. She was attacked on the tennis court by a nutter wielding a knife. It was at Hamburg, by a nutter who was obsessed with Steffi Graf rather than her. He stabbed her in the back. Fortunately, there was no part. The main damage done to her was psychological. This guy wasn't charged. He was found to be, well, a nutter. That was 1993. Sometimes obsessions are fatal. John Lennon was murdered in December 1980 by a deranged fan, so-called fan, shot him in New York. Just insane. In December 1999, George Harrison, former bandmate of Lennon, of course, of the Beatles, some nutter broke into his home, and if it hadn't been for Harrison's wife, who whacked the guy over the head with, I think it was a frying pan or a poker or something, he'd have been murdered. As it was, he died just over 2 years later. He was suffering from cancer, and that kind of lengthened his life. You don't have to be a big celebrity or even a celebrity to be the subject of this sort of obsession. Candace Owens, I suppose you call her a celebrity. She's a podcaster. She's a Marmite sort of person. You either love her or you hate her. She has over 2 million subscribers to her YouTube channel. She's well, but the only thing we have in common is that we don't mince our words, and she certainly doesn't mince hers. On October 26th, she related, I'll put a link to the podcast, I won't actually play from it. She related a quite lengthy story of a personal story of a guy who was sending her emails and really went over the top, and he was posing with a gun. As she said, he was arrested and I suppose we call it section, they call it committed, but he was released shortly. I mean, so she's got this nutter out there who's chasing her. Hopefully not, but Tucker Carlson had a woman who accused him of rape, a woman he'd never met. And politicians especially. This is a short clip by Julia Hartley-Brewer relating to, she's saying about young women chasing men. I've covered this sort of thing in my hangout on the 3 H's of sexual predation: hypermasculinity, hypergamy and hybristophilia. But it's a fact that young women will chase older, powerful men, even if they're not particularly rich. And this is what politicians can get themselves in. So this is just a short clip of Julia Hartley-Brewer.
Is there a Pestminster culture? Because I have to say, when I worked in the House of Commons quite a while ago now, one of the things that I saw far more than women being pestered or sexually harassed was actually young women throwing themselves, at middle-aged MPs. A lot of drunken behaviour in bars, a lot of drunken behaviour at party conferences. There was a phrase people used to say, PCDC, party conferences don't count, which I always found rather shocking, being a little bit of a prude on these things. And I just sort of, I just think that there's a lot of alcohol and sex going on in this world, rather more than in perhaps most workplaces.
Obsession, as far as rape and delusions are concerned, can take many forms. One somewhat unusual one was the Hampstead Satanic abuse hoax. This was started by a woman and her lover. I'll put a link to it, it's on the timeline. It started an absolutely ridiculous story to smear her ex-husband, or her estranged husband, whatever. Her young son and daughter were being, well, it's absolutely outrageous, and they had him making allegations into a phone. And these cranks from I don't know about all over the world, but certainly from the other side of the Atlantic, fell for it. And there was big campaigns in Hampstead. two women in particular became involved as true believers. Was Nilu Berry, who is a chemist, or was a chemist, nutter, and a woman I actually know personally, Sabine McNeill, who went from being one of the finest women I ever met to a deranged, well, put it this way, she ended up with a 9-year sentence at Southwark Crown Court, a sentence which was sadly well deserved. They fell for this garbage hook, line and sinker, and Sabine in particular was doing all sorts of things which insane. Similar to that was a bloke named Wilfrid Wong, who he was on the Sean Atwood podcast more than once. He ended up doing a 17-year sentence for kidnapping. Again, I'll put a link to that. It's amazing how people can become duped and obsessed with these things. A lot of these satanic abuse fantasies are obsessions. People, it's difficult to explain to a rational person because these are not rational things. We can see at the moment, at this very moment, a different kind of irrationality with this business in Israel, where you had Hamas murdered hundreds, nearly 2,000 people. I think it was something like 1,700 people, including 260 at a music festival. And you've got protests all around the world now, which most of the people involved in them from the so-called pro-Palestinian side, it's just become totally deranged, and you find it's these extraordinary popular delusions of the madness of crowds, as certain Mr. Mackay said way back in the 19th century. That's another example of the Hampstead hoax, how delusions and obsessions can wreck people's lives. This is one of a very different kind. This is from the timeline, July 9th, 2007, on the other side of the pond. Katherine Clifton, she met with detectives, claimed that she was a student. She claimed that at 7 AM on July the 5th, 2007, the college professor had broken into her home and raped her. He was arrested. Bail was set at $500,000, and they set about looking for forensic evidence, which you'd think if she had been raped there would have been forensic evidence. They didn't find any, but what they did find was a court order that told her not to talk about the case. And she showed it just to other students, and this court order was manufactured by her. In March 2008 she pleaded guilty to making a false allegation, and she was given a sentence of 365 days in jail with 357 days suspended. That was, the guy had spent 8 days behind bars, and she was also given financial penalties. You shouldn't laugh at these things. There was a very similar case from this side of the Atlantic. Professor Michael Patterson. I never actually met him, but I corresponded with him by email. He died a while back. I was invited to his funeral, but I couldn't make it for some reason. I think probably my back was playing up again, as it is now. But I'll put a link to his case on the timeline. That was quite extraordinary, this student who accused him of, and the lengths she went to. this isn't just obsession. What she did to him was evil, and the Clifton case is evil as well. Why women do these things, I don't know. But as I've said many times before, male psychopaths and sociopaths and just evil men, they will murder people, they will physically assault them for no apparent reason, no good reason. Women who engage in destructive behaviour are far more subtle. They use their tongues. I'll put a link to the Jordan Peterson interview, but this is something that's well documented, going back to at least 1919, if not before, not a long way before that. And they do a lot of damage, these type of women. My previous hangout, Toxic Women, covers these sort of women, and so do other hangouts. So avoid women like that. Two cases from the UK, which are fairly recent, dissimilar yet similar in the obsessive quality. Anisah Ahmed, who falsely accused one man, and Eleanor Williams, who she was the woman behind the great grooming gang hoax. Anisah Ahmed was a barrister, and she had an attraction for and had it off with a fellow barrister, Iqbal Muhammad, and she went to extraordinary lengths to frame him. She had him arrested. Eventually she ended up with a life sentence, which had a 4.5-year tariff. Sounds unusual, but it was reduced on appeal to 10 years, which means in practice she could spend longer behind bars. But it was absolutely extraordinary. She roped in a boyfriend or former boyfriend. It's just insane. And Eleanor Williams, I've discussed this in a previous hangout, and I've discussed both in previous hangouts, and there are their own pages on the timeline. She inflicted injuries on herself. I mean, really horrid stuff. And she framed, well, she created this idea that there was a grooming gang in her neck of the woods, Barrow-in-Furness, and this was very plausible because the grooming gang scandal. In fact, as I'm sitting here, there's just been news coming earlier of the conviction of a grooming gang of 3 apparently Pakistani men and 1 native Englishman. Not the sort of native Englishman I'd like to spend time with. They abused 2 girls. Eleanor Williams, what she did to herself was just totally insane, and people believed it, and you know, people will believe these things. When obsessions affect not just women but police officers and police forces, they have devastating effects. I don't like to keep coming back to Jimmy Savile, but what happened with him was in 2007, a group of demented females who had been at Duncroft School in the 1960s and 70s, they got their heads together and they accused him of sexually abusing them, back in that time. He was questioned by the police in 2009, debunked the allegations. After his death, they were revived by these women and by a crooked former police officer turned journalist named Mark Williams Thomas, who is now presenting himself as a child protection expert. And this resulted in Operation Yewtree, which destroyed the lives of, well, certainly Rolf Harris. I've set up a website about Rolf Harris, well, a fan site, if you like. I wasn't a great fan, but it's a Rolf Harris tribute site. Max Clifford, the publicist, Dave Lee Travis, and after that you had the VRP paedophile ring nonsense, which police officers from mostly New Scotland Yard, but not exclusively New Scotland Yard, they were chasing this imaginary paedophile ring that was sexually abusing and murdering young boys decades earlier. The Chief Constable of Wiltshire was taken in by it. Allegations against the late Prime Minister Edward Heath. He's now no longer a police officer. And these have all the hallmarks of witchcraft hysteria. You'd think the police would be more you think the police would be not just sceptical, but that they would investigate properly. But with these sort of nonsense cases, any non-evidence becomes evidence. If they can't find paedophiles, if they can't find the body, it's because it's been so well hidden. If a man denies doing something, well, he would do that, wouldn't he? It's just the whole thing is just insane, and it's something that goes far, as I say, it goes far beyond false rape allegations. And we are now living in troubled times. We've already seen one outbreak of pogroms, if you like, and I don't know what's coming next. I don't think it'll be just Jews. It might be Jews and well, who knows? It's just we live in insane times, and we should all think clearly. Try to think clearly. I'll just give one more. This is from 2004. This is Maria Marchese. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. There's a documentary made about the case, a dramatisation in 2009 called You Be Dead. You as in you, single letter. B-E-D-A-D. And it's quite an extraordinary case of a woman who accused Jan Fakowski of rape. She claimed he raped her in 2002. And she went to incredible lengths to frame him. And like Sabine McNeill, she appeared at Southwark Crown Court, where she was given the same sentence, 9 years. There's a similar, just one more. There's a similar case, Tawny Blazejowski in Florida. I've called her the girlfriend from hell. Blazejowski. Not sure how to pronounce these names. She was in a relationship with a guy named Joe Good. He broke up with her and soon wished he never met her. And she made multiple false allegations against him and against other people who came into contact with him. Yeah, I would say obsession is a dangerous thing. It's best not to be obsessed or too obsessed with anything. Even hygiene. People could become obsessed with hygiene. There's a complaint where I forget what it's called now, but if a guy washes his hands 30 times a day or 50 times a day, it's obsessive behaviour, obsessive compulsive behaviour. But anyway, that's the latest hangout. I'll keep holding. I'll keep adding cases to the timeline. I've added some last week. I've added some this week already. I'm certainly getting more difficult to find, but a lot of cases, as I said before, don't get reported. Well, they get reported to the police, but they don't proceed with them because the police realise these women are lying or drunk or deluded or whatever. The women drop the cases before they come to court, sometimes because they regret having lied, others because they realise they're going to get found out. Of course, according to the sisterhood, it's the trauma. They can't go through the trauma. I'll keep building the timeline as far as I can. I was hoping to get up to 6,000 cases by the end of the year, but I won't now. But there's now well over 100 videos. This is number 99 in the series, but there's more videos on the dedicated video page. So if you digest that lot now, you should know as much about false rape allegations as I do, or any man on the planet for that matter. Right, so again, anyone who wants to contact me, you know where I am, and in spite of that very generous donation from my sponsor, my coffer's always open. But I would certainly like to receive any cases which may appear in your local press, or which you've got documentation on, which don't make the media, or don't make the internet or news bank. Okay, so I will hopefully see you at some point again for False Rape Timeline Hangout number 100.